reporting to you live from the land of vanilla. What is your land called, Ashley?
The land of no.
Nar. Yeah, I like that.
You've got to really abbreviate it. No, not no,
Nar.
no, no,
Nar.
no, no, no.
Oh,
You know,
gosh.
that would be such a good ad. Like you're on the plane, the flight attendant comes to you and says, "Where are you going?" Even though technically you're on the plane and you're going there, just for the ad's sake. And then you go, "The land of," and then pause. The no, and then it just pans out.
Yeah, I like it because you can just like it can pan to different images of Australia, of the outback and like
Mm.
the city and the beaches and maybe even the food, some of the culture, you know. So
And
yeah,
a
I
big
like that.
sign saying, "Don't touch our wombats," like a big
Mm,
X. We're all
yeah.
just in unison, big X. Don't touch our wombats. Don't pick them up. Stay in your car.
Yeah. I love how everything you describe, I just see so viscerally in my head, truly.
We're just connected. We were saying that before we even jumped on the podcast. We both were like, let's like, I reckon at the same time we thought, I'm not doing makeup today.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's our friendship.
Mhm. Soul sisters.
Mhm. Soul sisters. I honestly had nothing else come up.
It's okay. We're both in that
These are the
space right
days
now.
of our lives. It's April, people. Have you seen the astrology for April? It's off the charts. We're all delusional. We have no idea what we're doing. We have no idea what we're feeling. Who are we? That should be
Yeah.
the episode. Who are we? And us just figuring it out. I'm Ashley, but who is Ashley? What is the
Mm.
A in Ashley for? Who discovered that name? Why did they put the A in there and the S and the
Mhm.
H? Why
Yeah.
spell it like that?
It can be like a History
Yeah.
Channel thing. You can go down to the root of everything. I like it.
Yes. Go
Yeah.
real deep, like deeper than anyone's ever gone.
Yeah.
It's full astral travel while we're doing it.
Yeah. I can see it. I can see you putting like a hat on. It's like, let's go on an adventure. And you get up, and then now we have like the whole scene of Australia, and you're like, a 19 so and so. This is what was discovered about the name Ashley. And then we go out of
And don't
space
get
and
it
we
wrong.
see everything.
Yeah, we're just walking through like those ads, no, like those movies where they're just trotting through and it's a different scene. Scene, scene, scene.
I like it. Time travel with the Daily
We have
Humans.
really good ideas,
Mm.
honestly. And I feel like when we were lining up to collect our brains, we lined up in the right place.
Hmm. Yeah, we got it from the same person. I like that because I was picturing it. It's like, thank you.
Robot movie where they're on the moving thing. It's like, next one, places the brain in.
Hmm.
Next one, places the brain in. That's what I thought of it like.
Nice.
Yeah.
Kind of scary, but yeah,
Wild
I like it.
imagination.
It's
Making my
important to
eyes
have.
water.
But it's the tears of joy of being alive, Ashley.
Yes. Yeah, can confirm.
Oh, well,
Uh,
while we're talking about tears of joy, tears that are not so much coming from a place of joy and are ever flowing, I think, in today's society. I kind of want to take this moment before we get into the episode itself and what we wanted to talk about and have like a small little session regarding like what was it 2 weeks ago's episode and some stuff that has happened online with some conversations that we had regarding gender and color and just a lovely institution that is reality. What song
That's
is
what it
that?
reminds me of when people like the Final Countdown song.
Okay, yeah.
seems to be a thing. I mentioned it in the last episode as well. But I just imagine when people are online, right? Where's my phone? Like, let's just picture this. And they see a video. I just imagine them going, fuck. Just fucking like fully going at it. That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
And then actually deciding I'm going to send that, and this is going to be exactly the thing that knocks them on their ass. They're not going to be able to say anything back. They're wrong, and there's nothing more to this conversation.
Mm.
Vibe some of you give. Like, I wonder if you've popped a blood vessel from just how like fired up you get. You know the Fired Up movie? You should try some
Yeah.
of their steps in that movie. We're fired up. I don't know. I think if you don't have the ability to try and take a step back or practice to do that, maybe people need to be qualified to be online.
Mm.
Maybe we need to start testing and making sure they're qualified to be in a space. I'm only joking. It's not going to happen, but
Yeah.
it would be nice.
If you guys don't know, we spoke a little bit about in our second to last episode before Ashley's wonderful birthday party. We spoke about how color has been used to essentially create identity within the genders of what is socially acceptable and what is not. And Ashley posted it online, and people were very verbal about their disagreements with it, and kind of internalized, I think, a lot of what was spoken about. Of like, well, I don't do this. No, how dare you? Just give it up. No,
Exactly.
no.
The full theatre production.
How dare you? Spit in my eye.
Talk about my children like this. This is not me. How dare thou?
It was interesting because like I talked to Ashley about it. She told me about some of the comments that were there that were removed out of respectability. And it's interesting because like I told her, I think it's very interesting that people get very triggered about this discussion rather than asking questions. I've said this before, either to you, Ash, or on our podcast, where it's like, if you don't understand something or if you disagree with something, why not ask a question? Why immediately go into the offense? You know what I mean? And it's interesting because like a lot of discussions that were held are, I mean, they're there. They're there to research. They're there to find with a press of a button at this point. Like you have a phone, you have a computer in your hands, you can look it up. But yet it's still like when you post something on social media, it's treated as an opinion only when there are facts that back up what we've spoken about. However, I do think it's interesting that people were so triggered about the fact that, you know, boys were forced to, well, not forced, but are kind of pushed to play with certain toys, whereas girls as well. And then when those quote unquote imaginary boundary lines get crossed, things get weird. And people were very triggered. It's like, well, I don't do this with my children. Do you have children? Do you have children? How dare you speak upon this when you don't have children? And it's like, you don't need to have children to understand how social conditioning works. You don't have to do it yourself to understand how social conditioning works. But yeah, anyway, it's a great time to be alive.
I didn't remove them respectfully. I removed them because I am a blocker. I am a deleter. I don't give two arsey martsies. I really don't. Because I understand having a response to something that is activating an emotional response. I've had them too, trust and believe. And I've had learning experiences where I've commented things that I've commented from such a hyper state of emotion that I haven't actually watched the video and listened or read the comment. I sort of just read one part, felt the activation, and then imagine like fire breathing dragon flame at that person. I've done this too. So I know when people are doing it, and you can tell when they haven't watched the full video. They watched which is what they did. They watched the first part and thought, "My children," and then went from there. Oh, stuff you. Go fuck yourself, and every other stuff that they created, thinking that I need to protect myself and what I've done as a parent, but it had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do that in the universal experience that's outside of yours, this is what's happening, right? And our question is, what's the point and why, as well as diving into the reasons that we know to be why this has existed. That's what it was. So the personal activation that people feel, it is about recognizing that if you are activated by something, in some cases, it's valid. Like when we see projections of racism or projections of self preferences in such a harmful manner, yes, valid to respond to that in the, oh, how freaking dare you, whatever manner. But in general discussions like this, we can talk. We don't need to, well, you can go and fruit yourself, stuff you, and all the other stuff that you self create and you decide to make it, to try and make it someone else's problem. That's why I'm a deleter and a blocker, because it's not my problem. It's not Nina's problem. It's not ours as a togetherness of the podcast. It's yours. And if you can't communicate, if you can't watch a full video and break it down for yourself, and even watch the episode of why we were talking about this, that's your problem. And I don't have conversations with projections because there's no conversation there. You can't converse with projections, right? So you get to keep it. You get it back. I'm not gift wrapping it. You can just, I'm yeeting it back to you. Keep it in your space. So know this, we do not negotiate with projections.
Okay, President Woods.
I'll set my boundaries. Do as you're told. It was, there was no conversation with any of them.
Yeah.
None at all. They said the same thing. Those comments, they said the same thing. My children, myself. You're not the only person that exists in the universe, right? There's all this stuff happening around you. There is a lot of conditioning, a lot of conditioning. I was conditioned, and Nina,
Yeah,
you
of
as well.
course. Oh my God, yeah.
Gone through a lot of conditioning. So, and there's a universal experience outside of ourselves as well. There's other people
Right.
you can talk to, there's videos you can watch on social media. It's out there for you to look beyond yourself, because you are not the center of the universe. Your children are not the center of the universe. They are a part of the human experience. And it's great. If you're not socially conditioning them, good on you. That's great. We want healthier foundations, healthier connections, healthier mindsets. But that doesn't, that we're not going to stop. Someone actually said, give it a rest. Someone actually said that. And I was like, no, no, point blank, dot point, no. Because just because it activates you in some way, and you don't want to look at that and assess that for yourself, and you think, everyone around me is so sick of hearing it. This doesn't affect us, so everyone should stop talking about it. Just because it doesn't affect you doesn't mean we're going to shut up. No, because it affects other people. I don't have children, so yeah, I'm around here teaching children, hey, the color blue is for boys only, the color pink is for girls only. Even if I had children, I wouldn't do that, because that's just, what would be the point? You know? What would be the damn point? But I
You know
forgot
what?
my train of thought. So
That's
yes,
okay.
you
Do you
take
know
the
what it
point.
reminds me of?
What?
It's this whole thing of like, you need to have a certain position in order to be able to talk about something, to have the
Oh
right
yeah.
to talk about something. And that doesn't necessarily, that's not the truth. You can have a general conversation. I'm not saying this is what it's like being a mother, because I don't know that role. But if I can objectively, as a human being who has been a child, by the way, and has seen other children go through this, including today as an adult, uh, I am able to say, hey, maybe we need to look at this and talk about it because as adults we need to be doing better. And if you have kids, I feel like there should be more incentive even to do the research on that or to maybe look at that. Of course, you can be irritated of the discussion of patriarchy and stuff like that because it is a very large topic and it is that deep, actually. And I understand that there can be frustration that comes up with that if you either hear it a lot or you don't want to think about it, whatever. But to project upon somebody else because they're talking about something on their own platform, you can just scroll, honey. You can scroll.
Oh no,
it's not that important.
oh no, zoom in on my face right here. No, they
Yeah.
cannot. They cannot because the raw, like the obsession to respond is easier for people to do than it is to actually just move forward. A lot
Yeah.
of people will say that they are suppressed in how they feel and speaking on that. But I find it really interesting how, when it comes to projections, it's very easy for you to find your voice. It's very easy for you to establish a space where you get to do that, or you think you get to do that. And online provides that. You know how many
Mm.
comments I've blocked on TikTok? No, not blocked, sorry, reported from different pages, from different TikTok accounts. When I've gone to the comment section and if I see just heinous comments, I will report them.
Yeah.
I've reported accounts as well, and I promise you, I'll show you. Do you know how many have gone through? Zero,
Mm.
zero, and the sentence is right there. It's horrendous. It's horrendous. But no, nothing has been removed. So these platforms give people an opportunity to be heinous, which in retrospect, as much as they like to say that we're ruining the spaces of other people, you're actually just ruining your own. And I'm not just saying that, you really are creating something for yourself that you will have to live in for the rest of your life. And you have no idea just how much you're marinating your own chicken in something that's expired. You're going to stink. You're going to smell up the whole fridge. You should have been thrown out 3 days ago. No. But truly, that's to me the continuation of that creation, what it creates within your space. When you look at it from an observant point of view, if you look at people that just spend their time projecting, truly, they live in shame, they live in guilt, they live in internal deep insecurity. They live in this obsessive need to constantly be heard like this, and they can't converse in other ways. Do you think you could sit down and have a deep, profound conversation with this person? Do you think you'd be able to admit that you love things, that you like things? Do you think your household living with them, that this house would run in such a healthy way? There would be communication where there needs to be, everyone taking on different chores of the house. There is so much more that people like this are creating than just their own feeding of their insecurities. They're creating a life that is built on their own creation of hardship. So you
Mm.
might think, I'm projecting on someone else. I'm making their life hell. I'm shaming them. I'm doing the, I was about to say something else. I'm doing the devil's work, but you're not. You can be convinced of that, but you're really not. You really are not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Critical thinking is at the door sometimes with, well, not sometimes, oftentimes nowadays, which is, it's sad. It even if you disagree with something, you can communicate that effectively. And communication is definitely something that people are having a hard time with. And online, you don't have to bear responsibility, it seems, until people hunt you down at your job and get you fired, which is also something I've seen online, which is very interesting. But that's another conversation for another time. Anyway.
I think in some ways that's valid
Yeah.
when it comes to there's been a lot of people that have felt comfortable to threaten
Yeah.
violence or racism.
Yeah.
And ugh, it's hard because the doxing part with those that project such inhumanity, like it's it's kind of like you've put yourself in that situation, you've put yourself online like this, you've tried to harm other people's spaces, and now you've got people that are finding out where you work and stuff. And I don't know, like even just talking about this now, it's been difficult for me to find a grounded space with this of I
Yeah.
get it, honestly, because if someone did that to me in with the death threats or anything like that, if they got fired from their job, I'd be like, well, you did it yourself. I didn't do anything. You did this yourself. And the
Mm.
fact that people went and found where this person worked and reported them, like that to me is a good thing because you should get the
Mm.
consequence. And majority of the time, there's no justice. There's no justice. So it's hard. I don't validate it in other ways, doing it to just general people online, finding out where they work, finding out where they live. Hell no. But when it comes to consequence, which is where I think I'm coming to my grounded space with this now, finding consequence for a behavior you chose to project, I think it's valid. You don't have to agree with me.
No, no,
No
no.
one has
Yeah.
to, but
Yeah.
I've been I've seen it a few times and I've been sort of going back and forth on how do I feel about this? Yeah.
It's shit to go through. I'm more than sure. But I agree to a certain extent that if you're in a position like being in the military or something and you're leaving heinous, aggressive, dangerous comments online, that has the right to be reported on. I think if you work with children or people who are vulnerable in general and you post heinous, insane things online, that deserves to be researched and reported. The same with other behaviors that are much more than just harassment that go further than that in terms of harm and, like you said, death threats. Even it's not acceptable. And you know, some people they walk away, other people they don't, they're going to do a whole research paper on you, so be very careful about what you post
Mm.
online.
Bullying as well.
Yeah.
Bullying as well. Maybe we need people to actually face consequence. Maybe
Mm,
it's I mean, human beings are constantly learning, and maybe this is the learning factor of how do we bring justice where there has been so much injustice. Truly,
yeah.
not just online, in physical spaces as well. You don't hear a lot of stories about justice when it comes to bullying, even in schools.
Yeah.
So, I do think it's valid in some ways, but the critical thinking part of this discussion, yeah, I just want to say my last piece on it. From what I've observed, people are in states of survival, and you've heard it a lot online. And there are angles to survival, and this is one of them, in my opinion. When you are in a state of survival, you're in a state of protection. And when you're online, when you get activated, your first thing to respond is protection. How do I need to protect myself?
Mm,
What do I need to do? How do I go about this? And instantaneously, we respond through fists, whether it's physical or through words. It's always a sense of violence. It's always a sense of in trying to install fear in one way or control. It's mainly the way that people go about this, because those have been known to bring stability, to maintain a sense of I can satisfy what I'm feeling by calling this person names, by insinuating that they're wrong and I'm right. I need to keep this momentum going of protection. It's not protection though. You're just creating something that can't be sustained because, like I was saying before, it's not a conversation. In some ways, I think protecting yourself is valid, but it's looking at the reality that how your protective self is responding right now or wants to respond, is that really needed with the discussion that you're listening to or that you're reading? Is your response really needed? That kind of response to insert fear, to insert control, to insert some sort of, I don't like what you said, so I think you should cop A, B, and C, and D because you have triggered something within me. Learning how to respond better. That's really what it is. It's learning how to respond, to be observant to the part of you that is trying to protect you, and realizing that that might be needed, but it's not always right. It's really not. That's coming from my own realization with this. You can be solely mistaken when you just rely on protection, when your protective self is always the one responding. It's not always seeing what the true reality is in the situation. It's just telling you what it's telling you to protect you from past experiences. So, how about critical thinking needs observation, it needs a deep breath. Breath work is always a thing that's said because it is, it is something. Critical thinking needs you to take a step back. It needs you to listen to the video a few times to really break it up. It needs you to maybe ask questions. Even if you're activated, you can still ask questions. It needs you to take a moment. That's all. Just take a moment and reflect. Learn what that is. Otherwise, we're all just going to be projectors online and in person, and don't really know if any human being is going to be happy living in a space where everyone in the human experience just responds through that. It's like projectile vomiting words instead of just speaking like this. Hi, just want to ask you a question about what you said. This is what you said, and this is what's coming up within me. So I'd like to know, da 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 da.
It's definitely very interesting, but you are correct, my friend. You are gentle parenting the nations.
I think we need to gentle parent people, even though they say gentle parenting. People get really activated over that because they think gentle parenting means never saying no. And that's, do your research on that too. Stop projecting that gentle parenting is like the dismissive, the like, I'm going to let my child smack me narrative. Anyway, that's another episode for another day.
There's so much coming up just in this conversation alone.
So much up here. There's so much happening out there.
Yeah.
It's hard not to just jump into one topic after another,
Definitely. And, like we've just so evidently explained and showed to you guys. Obviously, I don't know if this is the first episode you guys are checking out of ours or not. We've been getting some new traffic, so thank you guys for stopping by, checking out our videos. I'm really excited about that. Thank you.
I'm shy.
I'm kind of shy. That's funny.
Turn away right now and just listen.
Don't look at me. Don't look at me. Yeah, we talk a lot about life on here, and whether that be our personal experiences, things we observe as shown and exemplified just now.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. We tend to kind of flow with things, and the conversations obviously are things we kind of find ourselves coming back to at times again and again because there are deeper levels to everything. And in prior episodes, if you've been around, or if not, if you're new here, hi. But we have touched upon death. That sounds very, very interesting. We've touched upon death. No, but we have. We've talked about it before. And we've had an episode prior with Jordy, the medium. And we've gotten into a really great conversation about how certain practices about honoring or around honoring our loved ones, or the passing of our loved ones, rather, have in a way become more distant and even taboo. And while we have brushed upon grief in those conversations and in other conversations in the past, we never really did a full episode on it. So a little while ago, I went to Ashley after self-reflecting and thinking a lot about my life, as we tend to do. Us Cancer rising, Cancer sun, we're very emotional people. As you guys know, we don't cry over everything. We tend to want to rather throw hands, but whatever. I can only speak for myself.
Bit of a mixture there, and I don't apologize for it. That's the
Um,
Aries.
I like I said, I took some time to think about stuff in life, and I realized that grief was at the center of a lot of my turning points. So I went to Ash and I was like, "Hey, why don't we talk about grief? That'll be fun." Not. The thing, though, that is a reality, regardless of who you are and what it is that you're grieving, is that we don't always have the words to communicate these kinds of feelings. You know how Ashley just said we need to learn how to communicate a little bit better and ask questions? I think the same goes with grief. We don't really know at times what we're feeling, and it can be very strong and it cannot make sense and it can pop up all of a sudden, or it can be delayed, it can be immediate. There's so many variations to grief and what it is that we're grieving. And because of that, it can be really difficult to connect with others when we're feeling certain ways or when we go through grief in and of itself. So we wanted to open up the conversation today. And I also just want to preface before we kind of dive in. Like I've kind of mentioned before, grief doesn't just come in one package. It doesn't just look in one particular way. It might come up from the loss of a loved one. For others, it could be the loss of an opportunity, the loss of a version of yourself, the loss of time, even, or a health situation that you're having to face. And it can even come up in more subtle ways, like not feeling seen or celebrated in moments that really matter, like birthdays, for example. A lot of people grieve birthdays. So, whatever form it takes, I hope, or our hope rather, is that this conversation can maybe open that door for all of us to not make it look a certain way, not perfect the image of grief, but to maybe settle in more, feel it deeper, and let it be, and let it be present, and to not shy away from that feeling when it comes to connecting with other people. That having been said, I think obviously, Ash, if you need to jump in, if you want to jump in, let me know. I don't want to overtake the conversation entirely. Yes, I'm going to say it anyway.
Just not much of a diver, too high.
Too high?
Too high. When you dive off those platforms, you see the videos on TikTok, and I feel like my stomach drops into my ass. It's like that, like that. Yeah, I'm not much of a diver, my friend. So you go ahead and skydive away.
I don't know if I'm ready to skydive, but we'll see where it takes us. I might shimmy my way around grief. We'll see where the conversation takes, or where the car drives. But it's actually interesting because when I was sitting with this topic last night, I kind of thought about it and I was like, what am I going to talk about in particular? Because I feel like there's actually a lot of moments in my life that are connected with grief that I didn't realize up until that point. And I felt extremely emotional about it when I thought of everything. It was just like it was very present for me in a way that almost caught me off guard. And then coming into this conversation today, I do not feel the same way. It's not as intense, not as close to the surface as it was last night. And I've been emotional all week. I've been very angry, very, very angry. And even though, I feel like grief can express itself through anger as well. Not that that necessarily was what caused my anger, but I think that in and of itself, kind of seeing where I was at last night to where I am now, I think it says a lot about grief, how it can move, how it can shift. How one moment it feels really present and the next it becomes quieter again. And that while it can be always present for people, it doesn't mean that it's exemplified or shown as clearly as I think a lot of people expect grief to look. Actually,
Mm.
before I get into my thing, um, I did some research last night and I was like, what are the different types of grief? I want to know. And it's interesting because it gave me kind of a new perspective of everything that's been leading up to this moment in my life. Because there's something called loud grief and then quiet grief. And loud grief is kind of what I think the movies and what people expect grief to look like when you cry or when you talk about things to process them quite frequently, or when you, let's say, break down in public or something like that, something that you wouldn't typically do necessarily. That is called loud grief. When you need people to kind of support you and be there, be present, kind of show up, like be in your home, make you food, things like that. That can be loud grief when people show up in that way for you. But there's also something called quiet grief, which I wasn't familiar with up until that point. And that shows up internally in terms of you can be productive. You could go to work, you can do the thing, you can get everything done, and you look completely fine on the surface. But on the inside, you're feeling a lot. Typically, quiet grief can show up in being emotionally flat or numb. It can also show up in the sense of not wanting to process the feelings that are coming up internally, so you push them away, or you give yourself not really the leeway or the time to take a moment to grieve. You tend to just not think about it, distract yourself. And it's interesting because I think for a very long time, I'm not going to get too detailed on this particular experience because I have others to talk about, but for a very long time, I think over the last year or so, I can recall quite a few times reaching out to both Ash and our friend to the podcast, Jay, the author. You should check out her books, by the way. Um, I remember reaching out to them quite a few times and just being like, I love you both so much, but I feel like I'm 20% at that feeling right now. And it's not because the love isn't there. It is. It's so present, but I don't feel like my heart is capable of feeling that emotion, that joy, that love, that connection. And I think for a whole year, I think now it's getting better. But for a whole year, I felt pretty much nothing, to the point where I was like, is there something wrong with me? What's going on? And this was on the back of something that was really brutal for me. A lot of connections that I lost in my life the year prior. And so it felt weird. It felt like I wasn't doing something right. Am I not processing correctly? Why am I not feeling the way I know I feel or should be feeling? And I think there can be so much pressure put on by, there it is again, society, to move on quickly from things that have happened or loss that you have experienced or something that didn't work out for you. I think for a lot of people, there's a certain time frame, and then past that, they're not really as receptive to where you're at and the state you're at. And that coupled with the expectation to show up in public, and if you are female, if you identify as such, and you live in this world, we all know there's a lot of pressure to show up and be there for other people and portray these roles that we have been put in, again, by society. I'm not going to say all of it is just forced upon us, but a lot of it is. And there's this image to grief a lot of the time, I think, as well, that you're only allowed to have it for a certain amount of time, for it to only look a certain way. And if you exemplify emotions or characteristics that are unlike you, quote unquote, then it becomes a problem. If it gets into other people's ways or other people's idea of you, it can become a problem, which is sad. And it made it a little bit hard to know where to take this conversation on my end, because I feel like grief in and of itself, when it touch, okay, actually, let me start there. I think in my early 20s, that's when grief kind of became more front and center in my life. It showed up in a very heavy way that I didn't expect. And it, for the very first time, I was like, oh, I've never really experienced grief. There's things I've been upset about, blah, 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 blah. But I've never really experienced loss like that. Like when I looked at, for instance, relationships and people breaking up, because I didn't date for a very long time until I was an adult. And I was like, why are people that upset about a breakup? Just get a different person. It's not that big of a deal. And then I had my first breakup and I was like, oh my God, I understand now. This is terrible. And I will say that was coupled with a lot of other things going on at the exact same time, as life loves to give me complementary packages of desperation, grief, and anger. And it was just a time where I had to really sit down and kind of be introduced to the concept of grief, what it is, and how to feel it. And I don't know, at the time when I got better, I was like, it took me maybe 6 months to heal from the breakup and from other losses that I experienced around that time. And afterwards, I was like, okay, now I know what this feels like. I'm going to be so much better in the future. I know how grief works now. And then I took another year or two to actually work on myself and like do a lot of internal healing, shadow working, all of that. That was kind of my initial kind of very deep dive with everything. Um, and I was just so sure that, now I know I have a little bit more experience with grief. It's not going to, I know exactly what I'm going to do if it ever shows up again. I don't want it to, but I know exactly what I'm going to do. And then years went by and other things happened that I grieved that I didn't quite know how to handle, but I didn't associate it with that word. I felt like, oh, well, this is just sadness. This is not grief. I already healed grief. This isn't that. Mm-mm. And then something else happened that was earth shattering to me. And I don't want to be too particular with this conversation because it doesn't just involve me. But there was an incident that happened and I thought I knew grief. I thought I had it figured out. And I thought I had built some kind of resistance or kind of like a starter pack to how to deal with my emotions when I've went through difficult things or difficult times in my life, because I've been through a lot of difficult things. I can handle this too. Now I know better. I did not know better. When that second like midlife point came where grief reintroduced itself to me, it came to me in a completely different way. And like I said, I have had many points of grief in my life that I can recognize now looking back. But at that moment, when that grief hit, it sent me into a darkness within my soul that I didn't quite know could be that deep. And by darkness, I don't mean like I became evil. I'm like, oh my God. I think when I initially felt grief, I had discovered that there is like this cave in my chest that I can fall down into, and it's like this black hole. And it gapes, it seeps, like it's like a black hole. I don't know how other to describe it. And I felt like I had hit the bottom when I initially had my first round of grief in my life, but I didn't. And when it reintroduced itself later on in my late 20s, um, it went deeper to the point where, a lot of people say when they have breakups, for example, like in my first instance of grief, that, I looked in the mirror and I couldn't recognize myself. And that's not necessarily the case with me. Like when that second moment of grief hit, I didn't exist anymore. It's not that I didn't recognize myself in the mirror. It's like everything that was me just wasn't anymore. Like everything that I associated myself with wasn't anymore. It didn't exist anymore. The concept of myself in my brain did not exist anymore. There was no internal voice anymore. There was just pain. And I did not know how to handle that. And I think that really forced me to just be with it as much as I hated this feeling within my chest that felt endless. And to be honest, I was scared. I was very scared because this was a type of pain. Out of all the experiences of pain I've had in my life, this was a type of pain that I've never experienced before. And it wasn't so much that I didn't think I was ever going to get out of it that scared me. It was more so I didn't know who I was going to be if I come out of it. And I was afraid that I would be less of a person than I used to be. I would be less of the light that I was, the happiness, the joy, the love that I was able to give my friends. I was afraid that that would be altered in some way. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I'm going to continue. Anyway, and I think what I learned after my initial bout of grief was that every time the grief gives way to something else. It gives way to a different version of myself. And so again, when I was in the second rounds of it later on in my 20s, I was like, okay, I'm afraid of that person. I don't know who that person's going to be. And luckily at that time, I had Ashley, I had Jay, I had a few other friends that were there for me. But also a lot of other things fell away. Like that year of my life, um, everything came apart. Everything that I held myself to and I connected my identity to fell away, which is also why there was no self left in me when when the waves of grief hit. And so I'm going to take a pause from that moment and just press forward a little bit to maybe now. I think when I look back, I would say that luckily I am a better person from the experiences that I went through at that time and the losses that I've experienced. I learned a lot. I don't think that growth is because of pain. I don't want to romanticize pain at any point in time in my life because it's not something that I think is necessary a lot of the time. But alas, I think grief can prune you in a way, and it's painful and it's hurtful. And I've seen how it can change people for the worse. I have seen how people lose the light and the love that they held before that initial grief moment hit in their life and for who they were as a person. And I'm grateful to say that right now, this moment in time, I think that moment of my life has given way to deeper relationships with my friends, a deeper relationship and understanding of myself, and the complete submission to the fact that I know nothing about grief. And that when those waves hit, you can have all the plans in the world of how you're going to combat it. You know, these are the things that comfort me. These are my comfort movies, my thing, or my person, or this blanket, or whatever. These can be tools, but when grief really hits, it can take everything with it. There's no up from down, left to right. It can really like throw you in for a loop. And so I have deep respect for grief. I see it as an entity at this point. And it is something that is still present for me, as I've said at the beginning of the episode too. Like it comes up in waves for me now. And I still have moments where, you know, I'll get triggered by something and I feel sadness, or I can have weeks and weeks on end where I do really great. And then I wake up one week and I have this heaviness in my chest. And I'm learning how to be with me still in the aftermath of the worst of it. But at the time when I was in the depths of that pain, I am very, very grateful for the friends that were there for me at the time because I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat. All I did was cry. It was torture, truly. Like I even had therapists to help me. I had worksheets to work through so I could have something to focus on, because I knew that the pain that I was going through, I couldn't get through it alone. And the person that I am today is from the result of the griefs that I've been through and the experiences that I've had in life. But even more than that, it's because of the people that chose to show up for me in the darkest moments of my life and gave me light. Like Ashley, I remember you saying to me, even though you don't have the light within you now, I will be the person that holds it for you. And she was the person that helped me like get further down the road because she shone the light when I didn't have any within myself. And that is something I will never forget because it helped me she helped me bring me back, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's correct English. Anyway, yeah. And so it's just grief is such a it can have different experiences. It can be connected to birthdays. It can be connected to loss of loved ones, like I said. It can be connected to breakups. And even with my health situation, I've had many a thought about grief and how it's changed me. And even now, my relationship with my body and how I choose to live life has changed completely, and is also still connected to grief. But like I said, I'm going to pause here for a moment and I want to check in with you, Ash, and just kind of ask, when you think about your life and you think about the griefs that you've experienced, what is something that maybe you are learning to do for yourself in the process of feeling those emotions? I don't know. Do you want to talk about the light change first and then me repeat the question?
100%. This needs to be discussed. I know you're all going to be confused. You're like, what's happening? You've gone from on the side to the middle, and now you're here. Yes, well, I just wanted the lighting, like the real natural nature lighting, to be the first thing, but then it got dark because I forgot that daylight savings has ended. So here we are, just to help bring some comfort to you while you're watching and you're not confused with the changes that are happening.
Yeah, good. Thank you for the
You're
intro,
welcome.
my friend. But yeah, how has, in the process of your life, when you look back on the experiences you've had and the griefs you've experienced, what would you say has been your process now, and how you feel it and how you allow it to show up?
As always, you are the top interviewer, and I wouldn't choose anyone else but you.
Thank you.
I think the difficulties with answering the question comes with the knowing that I don't fully, I mean, I know what grief is in the sense of it, obviously, but it feels too big to like put in one book. Grief to me is a library that needs to continuously or have an open space for new books, right? It feels so. I've used this before. If you put grief in the middle, they're called like spider, and then you add branches off it. I've used that a lot. That's what it reminds me of. So, a different analogy to the library one. So, for me, I'm still figuring it out. Well, more like I'm still learning. Obviously, none of us want to experience the experience of it. No way in hell,
Yeah.
truly. And there are moments where you love things so much that you fear losing them. And even though they're presently in your life, you're reminded that it's not forever. So that's why it's hard to have a conversation and solidify it to one space to even answer. Like, I've had conversations with people about this before, and sometimes it's like the question is so, it makes sense, but for me, I'm kind of like all over the place with it because the experiences have been different. You know, when you experience a breakup, people can resemble that to the loss of a parent. And they personally are experiencing the same response if they've had that experience, you know. And some people on the outside would say, well, it's not the same because of the person. But grief and love doesn't see that. You know, it's like when the body keeps the score, the body doesn't have eyes. It's sort of going by how you are internalizing life. And then it takes that and creates systems out of it, right? And grief doesn't see the people, doesn't see the experiences. It goes by the feelings that you have. I'm probably going over Nina's question, like, whoo, different path,
No, not at all.
honestly. But it's been interesting observing it, which is the stance that I take more these days. I try to, and it doesn't always work like that, and that's all right. This is the human experience. I mean, the way that I converse on topics is through the non-linear experience of the human experience. I like to bring my own reality, but also acknowledging that this doesn't speak for, you know, everyone else's. But if you resonate, that's great. Maybe taking an observation point of view allows you to see grief as like a second person. That's how I see it. I see it like even a second version of me, and I'm watching her, and she's feeling the loss she's feeling, which is what I've done recently. She's remembering certain spaces where this person existed in, as an example, and she's feeling the upheaval from that. We drive past certain places and she responds. She's sitting in the passenger seat next to me and she's responding because she's remembering what this place holds now. You know, what the seat holds, what the cup holds. She's remembering all this stuff. And it depends on my response to her, depends on how she flows to the next stage, whatever that stage is. So I practice to know that she's in existence for the rest of my life. So can we coexist? You don't have to be friends. It's not like that, but can we coexist knowing that I love in this life and I feel in this life and I experience in this life, and she in the passenger seat will be there. She will be there because, you know, I've experienced loss with with people, with loss of like life, feeling like I haven't lived yet. That's been a big grief thing for me as well. Obviously, the fear of losing pets and how that experience would be, knowing that it will happen one day. Just, I'm going to bring this into the conversation as well, even though I'm way off Nina's question. I'm just going to flow with it. It's going to flow with it. We're flowing, right? I didn't speak about it on the podcast because I wasn't ready. When we had the episode talking about what the F was 2025, I believe it was during that time. So I'm going to tell you all an experience and then I'll share what I've observed from it. I have experienced suicidality for, you know, majority of my existence. And I've spoken about that on the podcast before. So when my pop started to show signs of suicidality and ideations, it was a real learning experience for me, because even studying, being a part of the mental health field since I was 17 and I'm 30 now, and I've studied what I've studied, people seem to have this ideology that once you know what you know, there's no movement from that. You're solidified in this space, and as a counselor, you should constantly respond like one. You should know how to respond. You should know this. You should know that. And I say to that, why would you place us in a box? There's a whole human experience around us. I don't have all the answers, even though I know what I know. In these situations that you're faced with, in that moment, with who you are in that moment, what you're feeling in that moment, that's the one that's responding. So with my pop, him and I got close after my nan passed away, got closer. And witnessing his mindset change, witnessing him change, it was something that I in some ways had to take an observation point of view, not out of survival, but because I knew that observing myself helps me to understand what she needs. All right. It allows you to listen to yourself instead of listening to the survival approach that most of us have been doing our whole lives. I still do the survival approach sometimes. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that in the shame, right? But I keep practicing to take the point of what does she need right now. So when all this started, it was the case of how do I support this person, yet entirely knowing, having to come to the knowing of what this looks like, but also the fact that this person's mind is fully made up with this. It's fully consumed in it. And even me speaking on it right now, if I have this conversation in the future, it might go different ways because as I process through the months of it, new stuff has come in, new realizations, new observations. It's not like this one topic is all there is, right? With what this experience was like. But he was seeing professionals, mind you. He was getting assistance, he was getting help. Um, he was a veteran, so he was getting extra support with that too. So the assistance was there. It wasn't always valid, mind you. Not all of it was supportive. As we know, some people in the field should not be in the field. And I responded to him the exact same way that I respond to people because why wouldn't I be in the space of hearing him? So I would say to him, I hear you, and then proceed to have conversations that we've never had before. We've never gone deep before. We've never gone deep. So there were so many moments where we did. And there was a part of me that was like, wow, but mostly I was in the space and just allowing it to flow because it's what he needed. It was also what I needed in little ways as well to deepen this connection, but hopefully as well to let him know that you're not alone. Like I hear you, like I understand what you're feeling, but not in the way that you're feeling it, but in the way that I felt it. So I'm here to hold the space for you, to let you know that there's no abnormality to it, that there's no burden to it. You're not, thinking such a horrendous thing that is crazy as people like to label it as. It's just a response to everything that you're feeling, that only you know what you're feeling. We had a lot of conversations, and he did make a few attempts that was just another step of processing, going to the house and police being there and just the process of all of this and getting him into hospital and having conversations with the mental health team as my family were. And you know what you know, but when you're in the situations, being prepared for that is not something that I think is, I'm not going to say it's not a possibility, but being prepared for it is an entirely different ballpark. You're not really prepared to face such a big thing. So as the year went on, just to fast forward, in November, around the 3rd of November, I remember sitting in the lounge room And I had gotten a call from my mother, who was on speakerphone with my uncle, and I could hear things happening in the background. And she said, they're trying to resuscitate Pop. They're trying to bring him back. They've found him. And I was sitting on the other end, and I was hearing what was going on, because it was obviously loud. A lot was happening on the other end of the phone. And at that point, they were trying CPR. And then it went quiet. And then I remember hearing, "He's gone," on the other end of the phone. And my mother said, "Yeah, he's gone." And she broke down. And then I broke down. And I'm not going to explain what he did. It was obviously my auntie and uncle were the ones that discovered that something had happened, essentially. But I just remember getting up in that moment while completely broken, and getting ready, getting in the car, focusing on the driving, getting there, and seeing police and ambulance and firefighters covering the front of the house. And that's another thing that you've got to breathe and process, is witnessing the family home that you've been in, all of this happening. And I got out of the car and I went up, and there was a group of them standing at the front, and I went up to them, and there was no structured words for this. I just said, do you know where my Pop is? And someone proceeded to take me to him. And even while I was in that transition of moving from the front of the house to inside the house, I was obviously, the police had to ask me what my name was and my address and stuff. And I know that. I know the protocol of it, but I couldn't even talk. I was shaking in my voice. And then when they finally took me where they had placed him, it just, you don't forget the journey from A to B. And just to make this very clear, there is no fault on him. There is no blame. I'm not angry at him. I don't blame him. A lot of people had their own thoughts and ideas, but I do not at all. My grief is in the loss of him. And in the reality that many families know this, are familiar with this, the fact that in life, this is one of the experiences of it. And I had never grieved that way, where I completely I felt like I lost my memory during that time. And Nina remembers it, because I was like to her, I don't even know what day it is. For the whole month of November and December, I couldn't remember anything. I was not present. I had a really low tolerance of doing things, because everything was overwhelming. The kind of grief that I experienced was different in some aspects in that moment. And the whole month of November was just, I don't even know what that month was. The entire month was revolved around people coming over, because we have family from different parts of Australia. So it was people coming over. It was conversations and telling people and being on the phone with people from Tasmania, and me having to comfort their whys. Why? I don't invalidate people asking that, mind you. But it was a lot of that, and it felt like a blur. Honestly, it felt like a blur. And to even explain what that month was like is really indescribable. But the grief aspect of it is, it's fully there, and that's okay, because that is the pain of seeing someone in such pain, and knowing it wasn't just about his pain, but it's also knowing how society treats pain like this. Seeing someone in pain, and then the sudden loss, obviously, is something that you also have to process through. So from then to now, that's why I said that how I have stepped towards grief is open. I've chosen open because I know the different versions of it without even hearing it from other people like Nina as well, but also this experience that I've had, that not just me, sorry, but family as well, that what we've all experienced in this is not going to be the same as the next person and the person after that. So trying to land my plane. I think my advocation for telling you this story is, well, all about open-mindedness with grief. Even if you decided to place some sort of vision of how you would feel during that, it doesn't speak for what this experience was like for the family and for myself, which is why remaining as a human being that chooses empathy and compassion for this is honestly the best way to go for each other. That's why society, I mean, even with what Nina was talking about at the start, society wasn't built to cater such a thing. It was built on making sure that we continue to grow society and move society and profit where society wants you to profit. It wasn't built on the aspect of catering to what is an experience that we will have throughout the human experience. It wasn't built on that. So, what we can do as a CEO, as a boss, as a manager, is to see it from the point of openness, to see it from the point of compassion and empathy. If you haven't gone through it the way I have, and so and so hasn't gone through it the way so and so has, it doesn't matter. It's just the fact that grief is that middle part, and knowing that there are so many layers to something that we don't even know what the layers are in full context. But let me just add this to this really quickly. Because online has been talking about, and I am going to say this because I need to, with what I've said before, people have been talking about Erica Kirk and her grief. I'm not mentioning any sort of validation towards performance. That's not what we're touching on here. Because I know that when people mention that grief is non-linear, like now they're putting that towards what Erica Kirk has done, and it's overshadowing from what I've noticing the shown aspect of grief on social media. That's why I want to say this. If a performance is different, and the first point of action that should be taken is compassion and empathy, but like I'm repeating myself with, is just pure open mindedness. I don't think I can say anything more than that. Is just to be open minded to this. I feel like I've
Yeah.
gone all over the place with my
Your
conversation on
journey,
this.
your journey, my friend, is the path that grief allows.
Yeah.
Had to keep myself from crying a couple times there. I'm gonna try not to, so I can continue speaking. But it's, I don't know. There's something that I heard yesterday, and it was like grief. Oh, I hate when I cry. My voice gets high. Like I feel like Ashley, you're very good at continuing to speak. I'm not. My voice goes very very high, and I'm just like I can't get my point across at all. So I'm amazed at how you're able to communicate through such a difficult discussion. But I heard yesterday that grief is the price we pay for joy and for love, and not in like a negative way, but that it's the shadow of that love that has nowhere left to go, no matter what it is connected to or who. And even with what you spoke about, um, I think for me, in thinking that I had it all together, or me being so eager to have something to like a frame to process grief through, was because I have anticipatory grief as well, which is also a thing. Um, when it
Mm.
comes to the loss of my dog or the loss of my parent, I've lost my father already, but when it comes to my mother, I think that'll be a whole thing. And I've been petrified of that moment of my life because I'm not sure where that's going to take me. I might be fine. I might be able to process it. I might not. I might go through the depths of despair all over again. We'll see where that takes me. But like Ashley said, you can try so hard to try to make sense of the emotions that come up in the middle of grief, but it's not going to get you anywhere. You're not protected from the pain. There's nothing you can do in this life that can protect you from the pain of loss, because it's like the quote I stated, it is the shadow of love. And it can be with people that you get along with really well. It can still be connected to people that you fight with on a regular basis. Grief is going to show up differently for you depending on who it is connected to, what it is connected to, and where you are at in life, and kind of the emotional capability you have to be honest with yourself and to be open with yourself, like Ashley stated. And I think, in a large part, I wanted to also talk about this because I think there's a lot of people who don't know how to handle it. There's a lot of people who don't know how to handle grief, where it turns into anger or even self destruction or just self pain. And I think the more we have these discussions with each other, I mean, I learned it for myself. I wouldn't have gotten through the last couple of years with, I would even argue the last 10 years of my life. I wouldn't be who I am without the people in my life that helped support me to get to where I am. And that came with a lot of loss. And not all of those people are here with me today. Um, but I am the product of not just the pain I've experienced and the losses, but also the love. And when it comes to future grief, anticipatory grief, my wonderful friends, and Ashley is included in that, have been nothing but supportive, have been nothing but empathetic and patient. Oh, patience is such an important thing here because, you may feel like you're going insane, but you need to talk about this one thing over and over and over again. And I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but I know sometimes I have this fear of like being too much or being a burden on somebody if I am not, with a snap of a finger back to normal again. And I think, you can be the type of person that can grieve and then be okay in a week or so, or you can be a person that grieves and not be okay for the rest of your life, or be okay in a few years from now. But everybody needs patience in that time. And I don't know. It is such a big discussion, and it has so many faces. And I love what you said, Ash, about seeing it as a person, and how do we work with each other to process through this, to get through this. Because I think when grief showed up for me at first, it was a cloud, just gray. I couldn't see anything. I didn't know what it was. And then when it came back, in many different ways, I got to know it better. And I wouldn't call grief my friend either, but it's kind of like an entity to me now. And it's kind of like death. I see death the same way. Death has taught me a lot, and it's an entity that I try to learn from. Grief and I are not as close as death and I are. And I know that sounds sus. It's not. It's a healthy relationship, but grief and I are at odds a lot of the time. And so I'm learning how to just, it humbles me is the best way that I can say it. Every kind of thought that I could potentially have is out the door because I'm at the will of the experience of whatever it is that my heart and my emotions are going through, and trying to just do the best that I can while I go through the pain and while it comes up sometimes in aftershocks even.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that. Yeah, go.
No, go ahead, please. I appreciate it if you take over.
I was going to say, from your response, I don't think that we can strategize or have some kind of strategic response to something that, in my perception of it, like I was saying, it sits beside you throughout your life. And whatever you want to call it, whether it's a she, they, he, not even a gender entity, a tree, that's up to you. But like, if you visualize it with me, I just see it like I'm driving the car through my human experience and she's just there next to me. And like I said before, just to reiterate it, she'll point out certain things here and there. And my self-care with that, which I think, if you resonate, might be a priority when it comes to your personal experience with grief, is in that moment, is yourself, in the factor of what do you need. Most of the time, we need to cry it out. Most of the time, some people need movement as well as processing. There are many different pathways that support someone's, well, say, grief number two. We'll say that. The person that is the grief, or the entity that is grief. It is such a self experience in many ways too, even though that people around you are feeling it in their own ways. It's such a self journey. So maybe, without planning, without strategizing, without thinking it from a perspective of I need to control it and enforce it, maybe the thing might be learning about it. Maybe that might be of assistance. I mean, I've taken a book, I've gotten a book or two about the journey of the soul, and the understanding of that gives me more of a perspective. It's not about silencing the pain. It's not about that. It's about that sometimes having a wider view on something that is a part of the human experience is comforting more than pretending like it doesn't exist. And that's my perception. That might not be yours. But sometimes I feel like knowing and understanding that it is a part of our human experience also helps us to prepare for the moments where it shows up. As much as we don't want it, none of us want it. But I do know myself that it has helped in the comforting of her, the grief, to know that we can continuously expand our knowledge through this. And I mean, why not? You know, I'm like Nina, the anticipation of when my dogs decide to depart. I've thought about it many times if I would lose myself completely, because they've been my life for many reasons. And I solely have no shits to give with people who don't see pets as an importance they are to many, many of us. And also too, it's just love. Like, you can't control that feeling and where that flows. I love my dogs a lot, a lot. And that's that. That's the human aspect of myself. It's the human aspect of Nina. And obviously the moment where they're not physically here anymore and I can't, deal with their zoomies or peeing off the pee mat, even though they've been trained and they have one job, you know, those moments will hit. They will hit. And I don't know how they're going to hit. They probably will for the rest of my life hit me in one form or another, like with my pop. I mean, it's going to be a remembrance for the rest of my life. I mean, still to this day, I drive past, like I said, I drive past certain things and it hits me all over again.
Mm-hmm.
That will probably be what happens. So my stance is continuing to practice to drive the car of my life. And in those moments where something has happened and grief is apparent, to look at her and be with her in the space of coexistence. Like Nina said, not a friend, not a foe, not an enemy. And that's my opinion, right? Not a friend, not a foe, just knowing that you are here because I loved. You are here because I am human. You are here. So I'm going to flow with whatever I need, whether it's bawling my eyes out and not wanting to exist in social spaces or whatever it is. I'm just going to practice to prioritize what I need, prioritize the love that I have, and support myself in something that I know will happen many more times in my life. Because all you can really do is hold yourself, as well as be around people who hold you. And if I could have jumped through the phone and held Nina for days on end, I would have. Give her her breakfast and then hold her. Give her her lunch and then hold her. For dinner, then hold her. 100%. That is what community also is. It's being held in the experiences that life has unfolded, not normalizing or validating certain things. Mind you, don't take that out of context. But it is also about holding people in something that we should be held through in the most supportive, compassionate ways.
There's this thing that I read also not too long ago that was like grief doesn't end, it just changes shape, and so do we.
Yeah,
And
I
I
agree.
think, yeah, I agree as well. It's just we learn how to live with the losses we've had in life. And I think, like I lost my dad in my early/mid 20s, and I think a lot of people can see death as an end with the passing. If your grief is connected to the passing of a loved one, I think a lot of people can see, well, that's it. That's all there'll ever be. And that might be the experience for you, and that's valid. But I think for me, in my experience, both with my grandmother and with my father as well, I've learned that you can still get to know people, make connections, and continue that love and that relationship with them long after they're gone in the physical realm. And that, of course, I know a lot of people have projections with that, so take that as you will. But
Keep it to
I
yourself.
can, yeah, keep it to yourself. but I will say for sure that I healed a lot of my relationship with my father, and I got to know a lot about him as a person and who he was after he passed, because there are things that I recognized in myself in the years afterwards where I was like, oh, that's my dad. That's what he went through. That's what that was, and
Yeah.
we had a up and down relationship. So it wasn't great while he was here, but I can say now I'm okay. And
Mm.
it's a beauty and a gift when you get to have that kind of connection after they're gone. Of course, we wish to have that while they're there, while they're here with us, but to be able to continue on the story of what that person means in your life and what they represent and how that makes you grow either from their mistakes or their triumphs, I think is a beautiful opportunity. So please, whether it be with a pet you lost or with a loved one, a family member that's human, um, please know that that can continue. The connection can still continue long after they're gone from Earth. And I think that
Yeah.
that is a gift and a privilege and can make you learn more about life and yourself as well. I
Mm.
think in the end, a lot of these emotions that we feel are gateways to deeper understandings of ourselves, like Ashley so beautifully
Yeah.
stated as well. And while
Yeah.
grief is hard, I will say I like the person that I am now because of the experiences that I've made and the things that I've learned through the process of that kind of pain. I don't romanticize
Mm.
the pain. I never wish it on anybody on this earth, but I'm really, really grateful that I get to have the opportunity to grow from it and to take it with me and to let it be kind of like either a boundary for me of like, this is what I will no longer accept because I don't want to be back in that state, or this is how much I love that person. And so now I'm going to use that love, that capacity that I know within myself is there to give that love to other people that matter to me and that show up. I think it can be
Yeah.
many different things with even the same topic. So, and I know I know I've talked about a little bit before. I want to touch upon this before I stop talking. Is that we can have grief with birthdays as well, which is a different type of grief. And I do want to touch upon that a little bit in the sense of when you don't feel like you're cherished enough or valued enough, where you don't feel like people are showing up for you on your day as opposed to how you show up for other people. That is a very real thing, and I think a lot of people that I've come across in my life have said that they don't hold their birthdays for importance. They do not want to celebrate it anymore. They just kind of, it's like every other regular day. And when I initially heard it when I was much younger, I was shocked because I was like, what do you mean? No, it's your birthday. We have to celebrate. We got to do something. It's the day you were born. That's a special day. But as the older I've gotten, I've come around to understanding that mindset a lot more as well, because there's a lot of pain that can be associated not only to turning older or to turn another leaf in your life, but also in the emotions that come up on days like that or events like that, because sometimes people celebrate longer than a day. And to that, I want to say that that is valid to those of you who have experienced that or are experiencing it currently. Don't let anybody shame you out of it, because it's a common experience. Like a lot of people feel dread or anxiety around their birthday, and when we have made negative associations with that day, or we've just gone through too much in life to be happy on something like that, on a day like that, it makes sense. It's valid. You get to decide what that day means to you. You get to decide how you want to celebrate it or if you don't, but nobody gets to decide how you feel about it. So never let anybody invalidate your emotions around that day for you either. It's very important. I needed to say that.
I think that one will definitely. I do have a lot to say upon that particular topic. I think that will definitely be an actual episode. Only
Yeah.
because if you honestly type it into TikTok, I don't like my birthday, and watch the videos that pop up and read the comments. It's actually really disheartening.
Yeah.
Disheartening that we as a society, see, I have so much to say. Like, it's all popping up in my head. Duh,
Yeah.
duh, duh,
Feel
this,
free,
that.
flow with it. If you want to sample some stuff and keep the rest for another episode, you can, or
I'll
you can just
sample
let
it.
it all loose now, honey.
Oh, projectile vomit. I always tie it to the connections within our human experience, like the conversations about mental health and the suicide rates in general. When I look at the actions and behavior of human beings within the collective, I sit back and I think, why aren't we having more discussions on this stuff of what we are doing to each other? Because people know what it feels like to not be celebrated. And I know that it's easier to hold on to the action of I will not prepare any sort of celebration for anyone else because I know what it's like to not be celebrated. But I wonder when the loop ends then, because this is honestly, this is more than disheartening, truly, with the amount of people that I saw. And yes, I did look this up because I have quarrels with my own birthday because of past experiences, because of people, as well as because of myself, because of how I've internalized that day to be, and how that day now needs like 10 million soldiers to protect me from it. Because the moment the year hits, I'm in March, right? So the moment that the year hits, even at the end in December, it's like a ping, your birthday soon. Start to get upset over that now. Truly, it's the memory box that opens up, and it's like, oh, great. The energy starts to come in of, I know what this day represents, and I know that it's coming. So I need to prepare myself for the utmost disappointment of the century on this day again, because that is the consistent memory that has been internalized and projected when it comes to that particular day. And it doesn't need to be this way. So the question is, why? Where did we go wrong in making it out that the day of, as some people say, it's not that important, and you are entitled to have your beliefs on that. But I generally think that the celebration of someone's day is important. It's really important. Just as we hold funerals for people when they pass, we should be celebrating them in life. Not even just birthdays. There's so many things to celebrate each other over. And even that is the further conversation. But it's what we have created, the life that we've created for each other, the spaces that we've created for each other. The more organizations that pop up, it's great. It's great. I'm not saying it's not. But at the end of the day, it's human beings that need major change, that need major shifts. Because this is a birthday will have someone feel entirely worthless. That one day will be the day that either creates an entirely new mindset of unworthiness, just that one day. And it's not because such a heavy weight has been placed on the day to do all these things. It's not just because of that, actually. It's just because people know that I was born this day. So it's a celebration of me being here. Like, I'm here, I'm alive. Look at what I've done. Look at what I've survived. All the remnants of that. So what now? Does anyone care? Because we're humans and we want to be seen, heard, and validated. Can anyone hold a space for me within this on this day where you just naturally might be in the spaces of thinking about all of this? It just seems to happen on this particular day. Even if you don't want to give any energy to the day, it's there. It's there, you're reminded. That day for people can be one of the worst. So I will definitely get more into it during an episode, but I think it's a good question as to when do we start breaking the loops and start recognizing that it will never end and you will never experience a taste of celebration on that day if people aren't willing to practice what showing up looks like. And obviously showing up has so many different conversations with that. But truly, what does community look like? What does being in connection look like? Healthy connection.
Mm.
And what does it mean to celebrate? Really, it's really asking the questions that we need to be asking each other, especially if we're friends with people, if we're all connected here. Well, being connected means being a part of the human experience and what that entails. And this is one of them. Birthdays is one of them. It's all about recognizing our actions, recognizing our behavior, and recognizing that you want it and you're entitled to want it. So, with the people that are around you, what do you do? Do we all sit down and have a conversation over how we're feeling uncelebrated at this point? I swear, I promise, I just need to say this. It is really interesting when you sit down and have conversations with people and you recognize like everyone's just been holding in the desires of what they want because they're so used to that being disappointed and never met. And then you look at them thinking, I never thought that you wanted that. And they're like, yeah, I've always wanted that. But no one gave it to me. So I just didn't give it to anyone else or I didn't expect it. Movement really does happen when vulnerability is allowed to be present, even if you're uncomfortable. But we need a change. We need a really, really big change for a lot of things, including this.
I read a book, or I attempted to. I couldn't because I was in the throes of grief at the time. But on the opening pages, it so perfectly said that if we walk around with masks, I don't remember the title of the book, by the way, but if we walk around with masks, how can we ever expect somebody to see the pain within us or to get better? We don't heal in isolation, we heal in community, we heal with our friends and our connections. And that's why we are also here for. And Ashley always reminds me of this as well. I'm somebody who processes by myself because I need that time to just kind of reflect and see what is going on within me. But I heal in community. I heal when I'm with my friends. I heal when we do stuff together that either can take your mind off of stuff. Like even the podcast helped me at the time of deep, deep grief. It just, you know, being together with a person, you don't even have to talk to them. You can just sit there and enjoy each other's presence, be on the phone with them. Like there's so many different things that you can do, especially nowadays with technology. But like Ash said, we can't do it by ourselves. We have to start being vulnerable. We have to start talking in a way that we can both hear each other, not just, well, this is what you did, and this, that's not going to give way to, I understand the anger when you've been disappointed, of course, but that's not going to give way to a healthy connection. So, or understanding between two people, because the anger will just speak louder than anything else, than the pain that is hiding underneath. And so, I don't know. The grief is such a big discussion. I feel like we've maybe just reached the 0.05% of it in this discussion, but I'm really, really glad that we got to talk about this and got to open up this way, because it's not easy to talk about these things, and it's not easy to have, you know, the recollection of everything that comes up while you're discussing certain things. Um, but I'm proud of you for talking about what your process has been like, Ash. And I'm more than ever grateful to you, and of course, my friends as well. I'm going to start crying of how much you've been there for me. It really means a lot. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
Always, always and forever here. Even in the spirit world, you won't get rid of me. I'll just be the light that's in your face. She'll be somewhere else and I'll come. If you've watched the movie Soul, I'm going to think of it like that. Like she'll be just toddling along and I'll be like, just there. Hello.
gonna look like an orb in real life. It's like an orb.
Orb, like, there's one that's trying to move through, and there's one's just like,
Yeah.
that's me. My friend, vulnerability was shared so deeply in this episode. And just know, for any of you, it's okay. It's just human experience. Normalize the deepness, please. Normalize it. But yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing in this circle.
I do hope that you were able to, if you needed it, to resonate to a lot of the discussions that were had in this episode with dear Nina and myself. And honestly, there are other videos that we have that also provide support and guidance and just like a comfort space of this is the human experience. Kumbaya, like, just full on, we go in depth with it because it's a part of life. So we hope this was able to provide some comfort if that's what you need at the moment or for future. So until the next episode, you stay safe and self-care and love of the self and all that jam. And we shall see you in the next episode, fellow humans.
All right. Bye.